Good morning. Welcome to Around the Valuation World.
Hi, Greg.
Hello. Hey, Brian. And let me get these slides. This is our correspondent team. Today we have an abbreviated 1-hour show, so we're going to have a few less correspondents than normal, but we're very excited to be here at the conference. I do miss looking at you all live, but it's exciting to be doing it this way. This is the future, right? And with that, we are going to roll into global association news. Brian, why don't you take over?
Sure, thank you so much. And thank all of you again for joining us. NACVA is your association, and in partnership with all of the boards that we have through NACVA, and many faculty and other committees and the headquarters staff have achieved some pretty remarkable things over the last year, and we'll take a few moments in this segment to review some of the things we've done to support you and the profession. Next slide. Of course, there's been no escaping the COVID pandemic. It railed across America in early March, and we're still dealing with it today. Soon into the pandemic, we realized for the membership and for the global profession that resources and education and training were needed. Not long after the COVID pandemic became a big issue for all of us to deal with, we were fortunate enough to collaborate with other valuation professional organizations, more specifically the American Society of Appraisers, the Canadian Institute for Business Valuation, the Chartered Business Valuators Institute, sorry about that, CBV Institute. Our partner globally, the Global Association of Certified Valuators and Analysts, and the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, RICS. We produced a global town hall in April where representatives from these valuation professional organizations held this discussion on issues that are impacting the profession. It was a first for these organizations to collaborate, and we're looking forward to repeating that collaboration actually in July, which we'll get into a little bit later in this segment. We produced free online education, and a lot of it. Believe me, our staff at headquarters rose to the challenge as well, literally every week launching a new topic where hundreds of professionals like yourselves got together to learn how to deal with this crisis. There's a lot of resources and webinars that are recorded and free for you to view. We are still planning additional content. You can go to nacva.com/COVID-19 to see all of the content we've produced up to now, and visit the page regularly because we're not done yet. This issue isn't over, and there's still credible and good information to share, and we plan to do that. And much of that content will be free. The next thing we've done significantly, next slide, is to earn accreditation through the American National Standards Institute, ANSI, for the CVA certification, where the CVA has already held accreditation with the National Commission for Certifying Agencies. Jonathan, do you want to speak about that accomplishment for the association?
Sure. Thanks, Brian. Good morning, NACVA Nation. These days, good news seems to be in scarcity during these challenging times, but NACVA has worked diligently to bring some positive news to its members and credential holders. And so underscoring our leadership and commitment to excellence in the business valuation discipline, NACVA is pleased to announce this achievement of accreditation through the American National Standards Institute, otherwise known as ANSI, for the Certified Valuation Analyst CVA designation. Attaining ANSI accreditation is really a major milestone for NACVA, and it demonstrates NACVA's commitment to the continual improvement of its credentialing programs and compliance to a rigorous, internationally recognized accreditation process. And it really creates a clear and valuable market distinction for the CVA credential by satisfying the highest level of professionalism and credibility. And so, along with this ANSI accreditation, the CVA designation is also accredited by the National Commission for Certifying Agencies, NCCA, which is a division of the Institute for Credentialing Excellence. And there's only 4 credentials in the world that hold both the NCCA and ANSI accreditation. And so this really is a big deal, and no other business valuation credential can boast this level of quality and integrity, which is a key distinction between the CVA and other valuation credentials like the ABV or the ASA or the CIV. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Jonathan. And Chris Mercer, for those of you who are registered for the conference, will give a great presentation on our profession and the future of it. Hopefully you'll join Chris during this conference to hear a bit broader perspective on where our profession is going. One of the next things we've done over the last year, the next slide please, as I said, has been to collaborate with other valuation professional organizations. We started with the town hall, which we collaboratively held in April. We're repeating that event in July, and we're working together to put those details together. It will be free and online. And in ACVA, we're pleased and have the honor to host the event this time around. The last time it was hosted by Johnny White, the CEO of the American Society of Appraisers. He reached out to these organizations early in the crisis, realizing that we had an opportunity to come together to provide resources for the profession. And we appreciate Johnny White and the ASA for doing that. And we're excited to host this town hall again in just a few weeks. Another thing we've done most recently has been to respond to the Internal Revenue Service. Let me just get that pulled up here. Relating to IRC 6695A, which addresses penalties for appraisers. If you're not aware of this issue, you can go to the nacva.com website under Association, drop down to find press releases, but also on the main page of NACVA, as the sliders go across, there's a link to our response to the IRS, which was collaborative with several other valuation professional organizations. Those organizations include the ASA, the Society of Farm Managers and Rural Appraisers, the Appraisal Institute, the Appraisers Association of America, the Association of Machinery and Equipment Appraisers, the Equipment Appraisers Association of North America, the International Society of Appraisers, NBREA, the Association of Valuation Professionals, NACVA, the National Association of Jewelry Appraisers, and the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, RICS, all signed onto a collaborative letter to the IRS relating to this issue. This is a wonderful opportunity for not only the valuation professional organizations to get together to work towards a common cause, but this conference we're hoping will be able to do the same. And so these are wonderful things that are happening in our profession. Organizations are working together to provide resources, not only for its individual membership, but for the profession as a whole. Next slide. Poll question, bling bling. Listen for that bling throughout the conference. That means a poll question is coming up. And you'll have to respond to the polls, all the polls for all the sessions to get CPE. Another very important thing we've done has been to ratify the body of knowledge for the Master Analyst in Financial Forensics certification. Alina, you hold that certification. Do you want to speak a little bit about how that credential has benefited your practice?
Yes, thanks, Brian. Definitely. I've been holding this certification since probably 2007 when it has another name, but definitely together with the CVA, it's been grateful, and it's recognized by my clients, knowing that I have the expertise in forensics. So working now with the association on the body of knowledge, I know it's going to be even better. And we are improving that to make sure that everyone knows their credential, and that together with the CVA, we can do an excellent work and being recognized also as experts on forensic, either prevention, investigations, and all the other expertise inside the MAFF.
We will be working with the Litigation Forensics Board and credentialing analysts. Jonathan mentioned earlier, the CVA is accredited by the American National Standards Institute and the National Commission for Certifying Agencies. It is our intent to apply for accreditation through the National Commission for Certifying Agencies, the NCCA, for the MAFF certification. It's something we're hoping to achieve throughout this year, and crossing our fingers at next year's conference, or shortly thereafter, it's a lot of work, we'll be able to share the good news with the profession and our members that the MAFF is also accredited, meeting the most rigorous standards of accreditation for certifications. Next slide. We also really are proud of the efforts we've made to provide virtual continuing education. NACVA and the CTI has a long history for nearly 30 years of producing education, mainly in person. But as Stephen mentioned in his opening welcome address, we have been broadcasting events by webinars, live broadcasts, an on-demand CPE platform since 2006. This is not new for our association. Certainly these are new times which require new technologies, and we've addressed that and always will. For the sake of learning and giving our members and the profession the opportunity, particularly with this conference, to gain all the knowledge that you can, for those of you who have registered for the full conference, you'll be able to attend the conference again in August, or one of our conferences in November or December, to earn up to 68 hours of continuing education. We don't want you just to come to this conference and get a lot of stuff. We want you to come back and continue learning. And as I mentioned earlier, through the COVID series, take advantage of more free continuing education specific to COVID issues so you can strengthen your practice. We have strengthened our on-demand CPE library, working very diligently to produce that content so that it also applies for NASBA credit. You will see what we've done always from education at NACVA, and that is to produce great education, resources so that you can succeed in your practice, and we'll continue doing that. Next slide. We're also very excited to have brought on a new editor for the Value Examiner, Dan Shiffrin. Nancy McCarthy, who was the editor previously, did a wonderful job for many, many years, moving the journal to a high level of quality and content, and we so very much appreciate her efforts in doing that. We brought on Dan Shiffrin just a few months ago, and we'll meet him at a later time and introduce him to the association, and encourage all of you who like to write and author to do that. But we're very pleased to continue the long legacy of the award-winning Value Examiner, and appreciate Nancy, and are very excited to welcome Dan Shiffrin to this journal. Next slide. So NACVA is not just a North American organization, we are a global association. We have chapters in Africa, Canada, Europe, India, the Mediterranean, Southeast Asia, and Taiwan. All of these associations comply with the policies and requirements to earn the CVA and to maintain the CVA. Earlier this year, we launched a global advisory council with leadership from these organizations. We are now having representatives from these chapters supporting issues with the International Valuation Standards Council. We're collaboratively developing education for certified members and designees around the globe. We want you all to know that our efforts in North America are also being championed around the globe, and are very proud to continue expanding the brand and reach and credibility of your membership and certification with the NACVA. Next slide. We also are doing some wonderful things with our state chapters. Jonathan, you want to speak to some of those?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. We're excited about the state chapters. This is really our grassroots level of activities to promote our activities at NACVA on the grassroots level. And we've had a variety of state chapters tie into this virtual conference, which we're very excited about. And really the goal of these state chapters tying into conference and having their local events is to help our credential holders, our members, to promote their status, their credentials, and esteem within their communities, to create an opportunity to network and develop mentoring relationships with other members, deliver relevant industry-related information and education to members on a range of support services available as benefits of NACVA membership, and also to receive CPE on timely and relevant topics. So we really want to encourage all NACVA members to take advantage of these opportunities and attend these state chapter events, and as we tie into the virtual conference. So thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Jonathan. And if you are interested in getting involved in your state chapter, or if you find there is not a chapter organized in your state, contact Jonathan. We at headquarters have a lot of turnkey programs to help you, so it's not a heavy lift. You can also, with your chapter, collaborate on unique and original content from within your own chapter, but we have a lot of turnkey programs to help you, particularly now in this time of figuring out how to support your clients and your communities. Collaborating and meeting with your state chapters is a good way and opportunity to find help and also help others. Next slide. All right, so we have a lot of education, but there are some courses that we've identified as being a little more substantive with content than just a standard 2-hour webinar or a standalone conference presentation. These courses that are listed here, we're working throughout the year to provide a certificate of education achievement for them beyond just earning CPE. Some of you who are not members of the association, we appreciate you joining us and taking advantage of the education, the content we provide, and you may or may not hold a designation with the NACVA. The CEA is certainly not a designation, but it is an attestation to a little bit higher attestation of a body of knowledge and content beyond just attending a session. These courses, some of them, the CEAs, are available now in our on-demand library, but between now and the end of this year, and you can move to the next slide, these programs will all be available live, but also through our on-demand library, where you can not only learn continuing education and get CPE, but have a certificate of education achievement for having attended them also. We're just always trying to provide better resources to our members and our constituency, and by improving our continuing education with this CEA program is another step in doing that. And our last slide, last but not least, we are so excited to welcome the newly elected board members throughout our organization. We're so pleased to say thank you to those who are rolling off of our boards, those who are listed here, either served a 3-year term on a board or are coming on for a 3-year term. All of these members were elected from within the membership, and as you can see, as these slides are displaying, NACVA has a commitment to inclusion, a commitment to diversity, a commitment to engage the best in the profession to help us build a strong and vibrant profession and organization. And we're so happy for these individuals who are rolling up their sleeves with the NACVA to do great things. Alina, do you want to, as our incoming chair of the Executive Advisory Board, congratulations, do you want to speak quickly a little bit about involvement in the organization? You've certainly been doing a lot in the past several years.
Yes, I really appreciate what you all have done because, you know, being from Puerto Rico, being part of our organization in the US, sometimes we may think it's, you know, it's going to be difficult. So I remember a couple of years ago being part of the first group that was 40 under 40. And then after that, being part of that conference in New Orleans. And I've been part of the BCB board, then part of the executive board, and now being the chair on my last year, the last year of my term. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the team, the HQ team. You have talked about the different things that you have done related to the MAFF body of knowledge, the accreditations, and we may think it's easy, but it's not. You know, I have been working with you, and I have seen the lot of work that you put to make sure that this association continues, and it's great for everyone of us. And as you mentioned, inclusion, you can tell. I'm really happy being not that young woman from Puerto Rico. I'm very proud of being part of this association. So thank you to you, to HQ, and obviously to all the members that at some point vote for me, you know, being maybe more young and so at some time, but making sure that we can work for the association and making sure that next generations can participate and get all the knowledge that they need to continue with the business valuation and forensic profession.
Thank you, Alina. And again, thank you to everyone who served on the board, and thank you for those of you who will remain involved through this next year. If you yourself are interested to getting involved in the organization, you can visit the nacva.com website. On the header there is a link for Get Involved. We have a lot of committees and task force groups. We need mentors, all kinds of ways to get involved in the organization. And if you'd like to, there's a lot to do, plenty to do. I think we are at our time, Greg, and we also want to recognize and say thank you again to all of you for attending this conference, and we look forward to engaging you. Again, listen for those blings, for the poll questions throughout all the sessions you attend, and I think we're ready for our next segment, Greg.
Yes, as everyone's aware, I am sort of the time miser, if nothing else. So we have about 12 minutes for each of these two interviews. I'll just say that so everyone kind of understands.
Okay.
First, we're going to have Jeremy Bronson and Garth Tabay interviewed by, Ed Mofron. Ed? Fantastic.
Hi, glad to be here this morning. Can you guys see me?
Yes.
You're fine, Ed.
Awesome. I can't see myself that I'm being seen. It's my pleasure this morning to join you from LA, California, to introduce Jeremy Bronson and Mr. Garth M. Tibay, who has so many titles. Let me see if I can pronounce them all. CPA, CVA, MAFF, CM, and AA. It truly is an honor to be interviewing both of you. We are going to be talking about a very common subject that is the topic of the day in our office too every day, PPP loans and PPP loan forgiveness. So Garth and Jeremy are going to shed a lot more light on it than we all know already. So let me start really quick. Our time is very brief, so let me get right to it. Gentlemen, does the PPP loan forgiveness or any unforgiven portion of the PPP loan affect business valuations in 2020 and thereafter? The floor is yours. Hello?
Oh, hello there. Yeah, so I'll just briefly talk about a couple of the recent changes that the payroll or the the PPP Flexibility Act, some of the changes that were made. So obviously the biggest change was extending from the 8 weeks to the 24 weeks. Obviously that's going to help out, certain businesses like restaurants, dental offices, businesses like those that are just now starting to get back into the new normal. Those that with the 8 weeks, when they applied, can still continue on with the 8-week period, but for any new loans, the 24-week period is now going to apply.
Awesome. How will the loan forgiveness be reported for accounting financial reporting purposes versus income tax reporting, if there is a difference, in fact?
Garth, you want to take that one?
Yeah. Jeremy, can you throw up that one schedule? So last week, the question came up about, how this PPP loan forgiveness is going to be taxed. And I think all of our immediate responses are that the PPP loan forgiveness is non-taxable. But, when I started working through the numbers, I know this slide is probably a little busy, but if you look at the first column, which is before loan forgiveness, that's basically your books, $20 million of revenue and the net income of $560,000. The loan gets forgiven, and in this particular example, the loan forgiveness is $2 million. So your book financial statements would have approximately $1,960,000 of net income. And you might notice that I tax affected that loan forgiveness, and I'll explain why I did that in a second. Ed, if we look over at the tax calculation, we start with the book, which is on the financial statements of $1,960,000 of net income. And the loan forgiveness of $2 million is non-taxable, so we back that off. So we have zero income from the loan forgiveness. But we have to remember that all the expenses that were paid with the loan forgiveness, those are also backed off. They're non-deductible. And so when you take out the wages, the facility cost, the salaries, the benefits, the facility cost at the corporate, you end up with the same level of income that you would end up with on the book income. So you would end up with income on your tax return of $2,008,000 minus your state and local would end up with $2,548,000 of taxable income. That's my understanding of how this would work. Jeremy, do you have any insights on that question?
Nope. I think that covers it pretty good.
So I think most of us, at least last week, myself, had thought that there was really no tax consequence as a result of the loan forgiveness on the PPP loan. But yet, when you start to work through the numbers, you see that there's a significant amount of income tax. So from a valuation standpoint, we as valuators need to consider the income tax effect that any loan forgiveness might have on the valuation.
I do have one other point to make on that. So with it getting extended through December 31st, what the Flexibility Act did not explain is, what happens if you apply for forgiveness towards the end of the year? Does that go into 2021? So obviously there's going to be potential timing differences. So what's the impact of 2020 versus 2021? So that's
question. Absolutely.
That's one of the questions we've got out there.
Yes, I've been having that question myself. Can you shed any more light on that, or?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jerry.
No, go ahead, Garth.
I think that it's not only the timing issue, which is uncertain at this particular point. And Jeremy's indicated that further guidance is expected to be published by the government with regard to how to manage this. But there's also income tax and income related to the tax credits. Jeremy, you had indicated the tax credits would potentially be available even in 2021 and 2022. Is that correct?
So with the new changes with payroll taxes, originally what the CARES Act said was you could defer your payroll taxes until forgiveness was basically granted. That extended now. You can now defer payroll taxes until the end of 2020. 50% of those would be due in the end of 2021, and then the other 50% would be due at the end of 2022.
So Ed, this is unbelievable how that is going to relate to calculating taxes and valuing businesses. And these are significant numbers that the evaluators are going to have to deal with.
I see. What is if you were to take one overall approach that evaluators should be using during this time of uncertainty, what would that one overall approach be?
Jeremy, can you advance that slide? So I think there's one. Okay, there you go. Thanks. So we're going to hear a lot this week, Ed, about how are evaluators going to deal with not only the COVID issue, but let's also say the recovery issue. And some businesses are going to do extremely well through this adversity, and some businesses may do very poorly, may even go out of business as a result of the economic downturn. And so I think a historical income single period capitalization model may not be appropriate going forward. And so what you're going to hear a lot about this week is using discounted cash flow models. And I want to emphasize multiple discounted cash flow models may be useful to forecast out potential scenarios as the recovery occurs. And Jeremy, if you want to advance that slide. The challenge on the multiple models are going to be, what's the growth rate? What are the increased costs from suppliers? We're already seeing in the restaurant industry huge increases in meat prices, and also the high discount rates due to the increased risk. And I think it'll be the challenge we'll have in the future is going to be justifying the probability weights on multiple DCFs. And it'll be important for us to go out and look for third-party justification from industry outlooks, economic outlooks, supplier outlooks, and inquiries of management.
Greg is coming on. That means only one thing. Before we go, Jeremy, I want to apologize to you. I introduced Garth and all his qualifications. I didn't get a chance to do that. I'm going to let you do that yourself. Could you tell us a little about your own three-letter abbreviations that come after your name and what they mean, please, before we go?
Yeah, so I'm a CPA, CVA, and then also CEPA, so Certified Exit Planning Analyst as well. So,
awesome. Okay, Greg, the floor is yours. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, Mr. Garth.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would certainly like to thank all three of you for showing up today and participating in this event. I know it's a little early for people out on the West Coast, so thank you very much. Next, we're going to roll into Dorothy Harmack, and we are going to have a little interview with her about, and I think I think, Dorothy, I'm going to get to do the interview with you. I'm not seeing, I believe Dimitri has not been able to tune on.
I don't mind joining you, Greg, because these are super cool topics. Dorothy, Haramanek, right?
Yep, Haramanek.
Haramanek. Hi, Dorothy.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. So, cybersecurity and Bitcoin, both terms for me are like big and overwhelming. Together, even more so. Can you break down a little bit why cybersecurity is an important and critical issue for all of us to be dealing with or being concerned with during these times?
Yeah, absolutely. There's two main cybersecurity risks that organizations face right now, well, and have faced, and those are email compromise and data privacy violations. And I say violations and not just data privacy, because a violation of recent regulations can more than triple your cost of a data breach response. So email compromise and data privacy violations are the main things that organizations need to be focused on.
What are some of the things that organizations and our membership and those viewing can do to safeguard themselves?
Well, for email compromise, you need to know how these attacks happen and educate your workforce. Email compromise attacks follow the same cycle, and that's identify a victim, monitor and groom that victim, convince the victim to act, and receive funds, data, or access for your hard work as a hacker. You can disrupt each part of that cycle with basic controls in your organization and with education. For data privacy, GDPR fines have been focused on access violations.
What are GDPR fines?
Oh, GDPR is the global data privacy regulations put in place by the UK. California has followed suit with their own California Privacy Act, and Texas has been reviewing its own version of this. So states are doing this. For GDPR, the fines levied against organizations so far have been focused on access violations. Very little have been levied on poor data usage or inappropriate data gathering. So right now, organizations need to focus on tightening their access controls, storing only the data they actually need, and gathering less data about consumers. If you lower the value of your stored data, and this is critical, you lower the risk of your data breach.
Is it hard to do? Is it education you mentioned is critical for everyone, but what other kinds of things need to occur to safeguard against risk?
It really isn't difficult. There are a lot of different kind of fields that have popped up. Like there's now data privacy consultants and data privacy attorneys and data privacy, all sorts of things. But a lot of these are very SOX-like in their compliance mechanisms. And that means have a robust policy and follow that policy when something occurs. And make sure that your policy doesn't infringe on your consumers' rights. And most of those consumer rights revolve around disclosure and acceptance of your policy. And so it really isn't that difficult to get something in place and follow that policy that you put in place.
So on to Bitcoin. It seems that Bitcoin had its moment in the sun a few months or years ago and kind of walked it away, and now it's coming back again, and it certainly is here to stay. Tell us your perspective and a general overview of the issues that are going on currently in Bitcoin. And I know you have a session scheduled in the conference about it. So tell us what you're hoping to share with the audience in your session.
Okay, so the foundations of Bitcoin are data privacy. And so understanding the value of data and a way to transact without so much data is critical. Bitcoin enables transactions without identity, which makes it a really interesting alternative to traditional methods which require so much identity information, your name and address and phone number and zip code and all sorts of data. My presentation tomorrow, is going to explain who created it, who uses it, how to ask about it in discovery, and a very little about how to trace it.
So tell us a little bit about, with the time that we have, a little bit more about those topics, those issues.
Sure. So one of the main things that I won't be covering in the presentation is how to value Bitcoin. And that's really an intermediate to advanced topic. There's several elements of a cryptocurrency valuation to consider, including forks, a future loss of value, and tax implications. And those words, except for the forks, valuation professionals already know. It's not as simple to value cryptocurrency as price today times amount today, but neither is any other asset. So that's also a principle that you already know. The presentation tomorrow, gets financial professionals comfortable with cryptocurrency and prepares them to start accepting engagements where cryptocurrency may be involved. That is all for today. Tomorrow. Keep thinking it's today.
With all the hours we put at work, the days do blend together, except I love Fridays and Saturdays. More than ever before. Greg, did you have any questions or something you'd like to learn a little bit more about these topics?
You mentioned acceptance for payment. I'm starting to see companies and people say they will accept Bitcoin. What? I'm just curious if you have the time for a minute or two. What does that take in order to begin to use Bitcoin as a currency between us?
It takes very little. It takes downloading software, and that's pretty much it. For some methods, it doesn't even require that. But to accept it as an organization and to account for it, it goes back to setting a policy for how you're going to convert, just like if you were accepting pounds or some other foreign currency. Set a policy in your accounting principles for how you're going to account for it and use that policy. So it really doesn't take much to accept multiple different forms of cryptocurrency. And there's also a question in the Q&A session that I'd like to address, if you guys don't mind.
Sure.
So,
is Bitcoin a form of a Ponzi scheme? That's the question.
Right. And so a Ponzi scheme has a very particular structure, and that's similar to a pyramid scheme, but where investors put all this money in and people take it back out for themselves. And they have this promise of a reward. They never actually get that reward. Bitcoin isn't that. And while there are Ponzi schemes perpetrated with it, there are Ponzi schemes perpetrated with dollars and other currencies as well. Bitcoin itself is just a transaction system. And it's a transaction system with some particular characteristics that I'll go over in my presentation tomorrow.
Great. We have another question. Do we have, sorry, did I cut you off, Dorothy? So sorry.
I want to be clear. It's a lot of words to say, no, it is not a Ponzi scheme.
Time for another question, Greg. I see another came up in the Q&A. Can you cover cybersecurity insurance? A lot of companies do not have this. Yes.
Not to disparage insurance companies, but many cybersecurity policies have a lot of exceptions. In the same way that you have travel restrictions in your executive protection plan, cybersecurity insurance plans have lots of exceptions where they won't cover an email compromise incident if you can't show that it's not an internal actor. And that can be difficult to show because a lot of email compromise scams imitate executives or do some level of corporate identity theft where they look like they're an internal email. So you have to take some steps to prove that it's not internal before your insurance will even step in. So to be very diligent about going over your cybersecurity policies, what it covers and what it won't cover, and make sure that you're mitigating in a way that fits your risk profile.
Is there something we can or should be doing to allow better tracking, and maybe particularly with so many people working from home virtually, to prove that it was an outside actor if this happened? I have a friend who had something similar with his bank account. Mm-hmm. They came through his computer. He was actually watching them do it, but it was the middle of the night. Is there something you could do to prove that as a customer, as a recipient? There's
several. As an organization, pay your IT personnel more and listen to them. You know, consult them before you do anything new, like setting up a new website or changing something out, all of those things. Consult them and listen. That would be critical. On the consumer side, there are a few steps, and that's pay attention to the emails that you're receiving. And if you're not expecting an email with a link from someone, call them from a phone number that you already have. Don't call the phone number in the email. Make sure that you're using things like a VPN. A lot of them are free. They're very easy to set up. Make sure you've got your security controls in place on your computer. Keep software updated, that kind of thing. So very simple steps to do when you're out on the internet, when you're conversing with your employees, and when you're transacting. So some very simple things.
Brian, I think we got about a minute left. So as much as I think I could listen to Dorothy all day,
Very interesting stuff. Thank you, Dorothy.
that fantastic. Thank you. I think it's probably time to go to the last slide and let everyone know that we will be back on Thursday, June 18th, I think a little earlier in the morning at 8:40. So we hope to see you then. Brian, I'm sure you have a few things you'd like to say about this and the rest of the conference.
No, well, I'm just excited that we got through an abbreviated version of Around the Valuation World, when normally every month we are like compressed for time. I will say, though, that those of you who are members of the NACVA, you are able to view Around the Valuation World every month, 2 hours of it, as part of the benefit of your membership. So if you've missed Around the Valuation World up to now as a member and didn't know it was a benefit, please join us every month. You can find details how to log in through the website, or call us at headquarters, and we can make sure you are taking advantage of that member benefit. You don't earn CPE unless you subscribe to an annual CPE subscription, where you can earn 27 hours of CPE through the course of the year of us broadcasting AVW, and that's on sale. Don't want to make a sales pitch. Go see the NACVA. Go see NACVA staffers at our virtual exhibit hall. Anthony, Michael, Patrick can talk to you more about getting involved in AVW and all the other cool things that we have going on. But thank you for joining us this morning. And we look forward to hopefully all of you having a great conference. And Greg, thank you so much for the correspondence this morning and our guests. And we're off to a fairly good start with our conference. Give us your feedback through the evaluations. If you need help, there's a virtual help on the conference platform. Live staffers, Diana, Kirk, Josephine, standing by live online through the Super Conference platform to help you. If you have questions, you can also call our office. This is a first for our association, so we're going to make it work, and we need your help and your feedback to make sure we're doing a great job. So have a good conference, everybody.
Thank you all very much.